first of all, thank you. And yes, the idea that I have today is to share a little bit with you an anecdote, a little bit of a journey in the realm of quality. I'm not a quality practitioner. I've always been involved in the quality domain, but from the outside. So I have a kind of a varied perspective of what quality means, not only in software, but also in manufacturing environments. And this takes me into the next big statement that I'm going to make today, which thankfully was highly supported by some of our previous presenters. Quality is 100% about trust. And the reason for it, I'm going to make this statement, I'm going to come back to it later on. The reason for it is because who evaluates quality? Humans. And what is it quality-driven for? Humans. So ultimately, quality is a concept that we invent ourselves for ourselves. So it's a way in which human beings have recognized a mechanism to manage trust. Trust on the goods and services that we provide. Trust on the processes that we use to create them. Trust in the people involved in these processes. So it's all about trust. But let's take a step back. Why am I here in this stage talking to you about quality, which is not even my core expertise? Well, basically, I've been growing up in the manufacturing environment. And as you probably have heard many years ago, manufacturing companies went into this domain of quality. Toyota, Motorola, they invested everything they had to make sure that they could get repetitive manufacturing down to earth, being able to produce everything in exactly the same way with the same level of perfection. And I'm not using quality, I'm using perfection, right? On top of that, during the pandemic, I got into 3D printing by chance. It literally landed on my desk, a 3D printer, all one, fixed it, and very quickly discovered that, yes, it is the future. If you go outside today in the city, you will find the first worldwide public 3D printed bridge in the world, fully censored to understand what the benefits of a 3D printed bridge would be. This was deployed in Amsterdam around 3 or 4 years ago. First publicly installed 3D printed bridge. But what is 3D printing and why made it so obsessive for me to get a hold on this and how does it relate into the topic of quality and ultimately in software? Well, first of all, 3D printing is hard. I just heard the word here, hard, a couple of times. 3D printing is extremely hard. Not to actually get it done, but to learn it. Because it requires for you to embed a series of steps, and it's a long series of steps, and actually in order to get something right. You need to memorize them, you need to become skilled at them. And you do it once, the first time. You turn on the 3D printer, you pop in the model, and it comes out. Looks good. 10 seconds later, you start figuring out, oh, this line could be a little bit smoother, this edge could be a little bit sharper. And then you do it again. Print. And it comes out, and it's this horrible blob of plastic that had nothing to do with the first one that you printed. And then you do it again, and it's an entirely different blob of plastic. And you very quickly figure out that it doesn't matter. The printer is new. The program, the software is exactly the same. The plastic is exactly the same. And you followed your steps down to the minute. So what went wrong? Well, that's what 3D printing has in common with software quality. It's actually the fact that these rules, these steps, cannot be just replicated by a formula. It's not just a mechanic way of doing things. It's such a complex system, 3D printing. You have material, you have pressure, you have the environmental components, you have the machine itself, and you have the complexity of the model. So it's so complex that there's no unique series of steps that will ever render the same result. Similar to what we find in very complex software. You could solve the same puzzle in 1,000 different ways with software. So you need a series of helps, aids, and we talked and discussed about a few here. You have processes, you have systems, and of course you have people and knowledge, right? The famous 3 domains that converge. And what I'm going to give you, let's say, a little bit of a journey here is, what does it mean from an organizational perspective? What are the key traits and ideas that an organization must at least consider when determining to go into the domain of quality? And there's 4 main things. First, that identify a company that is focused on quality. First, commitment to excellence. You do not do a quality engagement or a quality initiative because only a customer feedback or because you want to increase a certain KPI. From a sustainable quality practitioning perspective, this is a full-on investment. Either you produce to quality or you don't. It is as simple as that, because the changes required to get there are very much embedded in your organization, in your people. Second, as mentioned in the previous one, it's a never-ending journey. This is continuous improvement. There's no start, there's no end. And if you ever get completion by stating, yes, we made it, you're probably already dwindling down on your own quality. Third, collaboration. We talked about it being made by humans for humans. So ultimately, in order to get those proof points, that data, it needs to be done by humans. There is no such thing as a 100% automated quality system. Total quality management, there's not a single software solution out there that can take end-to-end total quality management. And finally, and probably the most important part of them all, responsibility and accountability. If every employee in a company would be held liable for the performance of their service, of their product in the market, people would have a very different way of understanding quality. And we see it every day, right? Nowadays, we have a very, very clear example. Who here hasn't heard about the famous case of Boeing? Boeing and Airbus aircraft. Quality has been a main topic for these industries forever, since the day one, because there's nobody who's going to step on a plane built by a third party if you don't trust that third party. So that third party has to deliver absolute, flawless, spotless quality. And it takes but a little complacency to lose that reputation. Again, going back to the topic of the previous presentation, it's the experience. Quality, bad quality stays forever. And it doesn't even have to be associated to the product itself. It could be just in the offering of the product, in the servicing of the, in any part of its life cycle. Next one. So in aviation, this has become a very big topic. But why do manufacturing engineers actually get so passionate about this? You go into the shop floor of Boeing or Rolls-Royce or any advanced engineering company, and what you will get is the operator of the mill will not deviate a single millimeter from the standard best practice for operating that mill. In fact, they're so passionate about their own little domain, that particular machine, that they won't allow the shop floor to conclude the shift until everybody owning their little domain has fully signed off on the quality performance of the day. There's no management involved in this. There is no KPI measuring whether they did it or not. This is the shop floor regulating itself. That's how aviation works, right? Then, of course, you have systems adding up that information, providing high-level visibility, and basically building up the framework. But the need to deliver that perfect blade, you can see it in a 5-minute interview with the operator. The quality is not being driven by the system, it's not being driven by the material. It's being driven by this engineer who will not let anybody in his team go until that blade is shiny and perfect. Because in his mind, there's 350 people who are actually flying in that plane. And if that plane ever crashes, it's his fault. And although this is a bit of an extreme case, it is the one thing that in software is extremely difficult to get. And we were also hearing just a few minutes ago around how difficult it is for developers to adopt guidelines, best practices. And part of that is explained by the fact that the impact of their work is heavily distanced from their actual day-to-day. It's very difficult to measure your impact as a developer in what the solution does for your customer. So there is an additional challenge in getting that to work. But at the end of the day, we're still all developers. Right? So basically, we follow the 3 main pillars of software engineering. Specification. This is where 50% of the quality issues start, and we heard it again in one of the previous meetings. If you don't specify correctly what you want to get out of the software, you're going to design against bad quality. And then you have the topic of quality of conformance versus quality of design. What is the quality that we're trying to pursue? Is it proving to ourselves that what we did is well done? Or is it proving to ourselves and to the customer that what we promised to the customer works as expected? the two different types of quality. And as a company, you need to decide what is your focus. Is it the functional usage of your solution towards the customer, or is it, let's say, the technical debt and the quality of design? And you're going to be using the same three tools that most industries use. You're going to be using processes. And I really like this one because, unfortunately, that's how many processes look both in engineering, manufacturing, and in software. You have a bunch of people working on a lot of documentation, and there's this little one spec that nobody has realized. Oh, turns out we haven't figured that one out yet. So you send it to technical debt. But we do have tools. And again, they're not new. Somebody was making the joke that Agile is already 25 years old, if not older. And yes, we know about waterfall and how, well, nowadays it has lost its attractiveness. But let me give you a little bit of insight. There are very good use cases for waterfall in software design. So also you need to be very careful that when you're choosing the processes that you're going to follow to ensure that the quality of your solution is there from the moment that the engineer or consultant starts thinking about it until it's actually being used by the customer, starts by choosing the right project methodology. Yes, there's arguments in pro of Agile. Yes, there's arguments in pro of waterfall. But for example, risk-based assessment project methodologies, the famous spiral methodology, which take into account the volatile or the varying risk of certain capabilities and then prioritizes based on them. You need to make the due diligence of understanding which project methodology will reflect, let's say, the complexity of your project and of your organization. Tooling. Solutions, systems, and that's why we're here today. The assumption, in order to get a proper quality practices, tooling will be there to assist in the process. It should be fitting towards the, let's say, the checkpoints that you want to make and the type of people that you have. We're here today because we believe that SIG has a great technology to support in the area of maintainability and code review, right? And we consider SIG and Sigrid to be a key integral part of a quality assurance process. Is Sigrid, is any other solution out there quality assurance per definition? No. It's part of a larger ecosystem, and that ecosystem of solutions, of processes, will be unique for each of your companies, and you need to dive into that level of detail when trying to define what is that quality journey that you're going to take. And ultimately, the most important part, teams, people, and the reason I wanted to touch base from a CLEVR perspective here. How you set up your teams. We touched upon the individual teams being autonomous and guiding them through guidelines. There's a dozen team setups available, right? And they've been very well documented. You have federated, you have functionally driven, you have matrix organizations. There is no one recipe to fit them all. But it is important that your teams feel comfortable with the organizational setup. Two organizations of the same maturity may display very different quality traits in their product just because of how their teams are set up. What happens if you copy and paste the wrong team setup in an organization where it had been extremely successful, identically in a new one? Are you to expect exactly the same results? Same domain, same industry? Highly likely not. You're going to get trouble, because organizations and team setups are derived from the dynamics and culture of a company. So, key things to enable those teams and enable an organization to adopt a quality culture. First, management by example. If you're going to talk about quality, if you're going to demand quality, you're going to have to lead the topic by doing everything you do in your job with quality at the center place. So, for example, typical example, we're going to go and sell a solution into a customer. And we offer a quality assurance role to make sure that everybody is following guidelines. And the customer says, well, we're not really interested because we already think we're doing our project with high quality. Okay, that's a very good first sign for you as a company to put the brakes. Okay, is quality-centric in our projects or not? Can you customer ensure that quality will be self-driven, aka a natural part of this project, or do we have to have a certain entity, people, person, team to actually help us identify where we're losing on quality, where we're forgetting about the quality, or where we haven't truly embedded the concept of quality within the offering? So having that role-based leadership is important. Second, you need to invest in training. One of my biggest challenges has, for many people, especially when you've been talking and working in the domain, quality is almost like a second word. We need to do this with quality, that with quality is highly overused. So when you actually need to, for the message to permeate and be delivered within your organization, don't assume that because people talk and react positively to the topic of quality, that it actually has been ingrained in their way of working. Quality, unfortunately, is one of those domains that is easily dismissed because of the simplicity of the word. And we need, as organizations, to make sure that it's actually ingrained in the organization, not just a ancillary. I heard a very positive question today here, which was about the reward for quality. How do we reward quality? And the question was very explicit. Do you reward getting rid of technical debt, addressing the technical debt, thus increasing quality? Now, reward is a very difficult word to use because there's different ways of rewarding, and you could argue that by having a better product, you are already rewarding the organization. But there is a topic for you as a company, as an organization, to look at. You need to incentivize your teams to have this shared dream, let's call it. And ultimately, open communication, the whole topic of solutions like Sigrid not being understood as finger pointers, but rather as friends that help us improve. This is critical because, unfortunately, quality is typically associated to making mistakes. Not necessarily to variability, for example, but humans associate quality to making mistakes. Bad quality, lots of mistakes. Good quality, no mistakes. And it's not necessarily true. So there is a resistance, a natural resistance for people to try to hide quality issues or minimize them. So ensure that communication in a proper, let's say, whistleblower, I hate that word, but whistleblower policy is there. Anybody should be able to raise their hand and say, I saw a mistake, I saw an issue. It's nobody to blame, but let's solve it, because that's going to come bite us 2 years from now. And there's one trick to this, and it's something that American football does pretty well, which is the embodiment of the figure of quality assurance. And what we've been talking so far is 100% related to quality assurance and not to quality control. This is not about the usage of any individual solution. It is not about the enforcement of any individual process. It's about getting an end-to-end framework embedded within your organization such that every developer, every QA engineer, every test engineer has exactly the same philosophy, the same target, and ultimately the same view about why his, her, or our product as an organization is important. Keeping up with the tools, keeping up with the processes, that's something that's more natural in business. We will keep up. There will be new ones and there will be improvements. So the real challenge is how to embed all of these things together within the solution. Well, and again, not a quality practitioner, so I don't have the magic bullet for you to go back and say, okay, this is what we're going to do to get this going. But I do have one thing that helps a lot. Involve the field, the shop floor, the actual teams as early as possible. Even so, as early as helping you determine why you should do this. If you're starting the journey of getting quality as a central part of your organization, let's say you're a startup with 10 people, instead of coming with a paradigm, we need to do this with quality, get them together, go out for one day and ask them, what do you feel is quality in the mind of your customer, your family, you as an employee, and get that ingrained within your way of working. So getting the individual teams to collaborate to construct the quality paradigm of the company is critical. And get help. We've discussed around how we can use Sigrid to highlight some of the quality issues, how we can use the results from Sigrid or from QSM to guide how developers can improve their way of development. So we as CLEVR we also believe in the fact that you should not be the expert in everything, but get the expert who actually knows how to help you out. And that is something that we believe so strongly in that we took that approach recently. And as such, I would like to invite Luc Brands to the stage, as well as Jeroen Hannekamp, CEO of CLEVR, where I work from, as they have a little bit of news to share in line with collaborating in the domain of quality.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Luc.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, because Luc, I think we have a very big announcement to make.
Very big announcement, but we have -2 minutes for that. So,
so we skip it?
No, we're not going to skip it.
Okay.
No, as you know, we've been focusing on building our Sigrid platform, our knowledge, supporting 309 different technologies, including Mendix, as you saw. We got to meet CLEVR, who had a bunch of tools that we thought, oh, let's have a discussion. So maybe you can say a few words about those tools, and then I'll take it over.
And then handing it back to you. No, great. Yeah, indeed. We build tooling. A lot of you actually in this room use it. ACR, APD, ATS for testing, for performance measuring, for code reviewing. And at the same time, and it's actually resonating extremely well with Camilo's story, is you need to do what you do best. Hence, we're software solutions reseller and implementation partner, and we were looking for the best company to run that as a software. Hence, you guys.
There you go. So we took over the IP and customers of those 3 tools, APD, ACR, ATS. We'll support that until at least the end of 2026. So if there's any concerns about that, let me know. So we're integrating that in our platform. We'll be announcing more about that in the future. So that was a little bit of an announcement. We're also happy that CLEVR is going to join us in our Sigrid journey, helping our joint customers and our customers around the world to create better software, because that's what it's all about, to have that long-term future rather than a short-term fast food focus.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, so you will, and that is really something where we are now leveraging the entire SIG portfolio in order to see what we can further implement and develop. And also, just like your story, Raymond, I really like that also when I was looking at a lot of their customers, Zurich, Mondi, Swatch IT, that's actually all customers of ourselves already, as well as you. Hence, there is already a combination. So really, if you're having questions or want to talk to Camilo about quality or about the portfolio of SIG in order to see how we can combine these things in order to make it better, then my only suggestion is to build tomorrow together.
Exactly, because the end goal, of course, is to serve you all better, to have you all build better software in a smooth and as best possible way. Thank you for that. And with that, with the minus so many minutes, we'll go back to the program. Adam, maybe for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.